This week we're going to be looking at the palms of Derrek Acorah. Please don't haunt me, Derrek. So in this week's video, I really want to get to the bottom of whether or not we can really determine from the chirognomy of this person's hand and a little bit of the chirology as to whether or not Derrek Acorah had the kind of psychic powers that he claims, and what else can this person's palm show us. Now, this little finger here is very telling, and I'm going to reveal what I think this means, what this shows us in palmistry at the end of this video, and it's my kind of closing statement, so stick around for that one. So first of all, one of the first things I notice here, really, I'm just going to put my chair down a bit, is that we've got some very reddish fingertips. One interpretation could be that this person's spirit, because remember the phalanges of our fingers represents the spirit, the second the mind, and the third the body. So this is all things physical, and the mind, this is all things sort of mental, decision making, but also literally physically the head and even the throat. And the tips of our fingers, they represent more where kind of inspiration comes from, intuition, and our spiritual kind of aspect, our ego and our ambition. So it's things a little bit higher, if that makes sense. So the second phalanx is more around the kind of physicality of the head, but there is some sort of, it's kind of one and the same in a way. So one argument for the reddish kind of fingertips could be said that this person's spiritual aspects are working in overdrive, hypersensitive. That makes sense, and I do think this is a clear sign of intuition, but also on a physical level, the other interpretation in palmistry for reddish fingertips could be some sort of physical aspect, like a blood pressure issue, a blood flow issue, or a heart issue. Could be one of any of those, really. The other thing I want to mention here about the palms, which I really pick up on in all the images, look at the complexion of this person's face. It's kind of an obvious one, isn't it? This looks like the face of a drinker. So when we see reddish fingertips like this in conjunction with a very sort of yellowish complexion of the palms in conjunction with a reddish face, I'm already getting I'm going to make a bit of a snap assessment here and say that these are the palms of a drinker. The third phalanx of Jupiter is quite wide, it's quite thick. These are, as I say, this is our body, it's our vices. This is where we satiate the need to fulfill Jupiterian desires. This Jupiter is all about ambition, decision making, decigo, authority, and ego. So when we have a need to satiate our desires, it's often seen here. A widened basal phalanx can often be said that this is someone who wishes to escape with a drink or drugs or sex. In this case, I think we can safely assume this is alcohol. Now, in this image here, very sort of defensive body language. He almost looks like he's kind of arguing with me. We see here, and this for me is quite striking, because the heart line, look at just how wavy this heart line is. We don't quite see the same thing on the left hand, which could be an indication, again, this is a possible indication of a blood flow issue, a weakening of some sort of inner workings of the blood pressure issue, or heart issue. It's tied in with how blood flows around the body. The other the other interpretation, that's the word I'm looking for, could be that this is someone who is a wavy heartline like this, that ends up being particularly wavy underneath Saturn, shows us someone who is very materialistically focused. Their aim is to make money by any means necessary, and they're probably a little bit deceitful in how they do it. They're happy to lend money as long as they can get more back. That's the kind of heartline you'll see on, a nefarious banker, if you like. There are other signs here as to, this kind of desire to accumulate wealth, and that can be seen in the second phalanges of the Saturn and Apollo finger. They're very sort of long, which kind of shows an understanding of material value. But more than that, when we look at the headline, and you've probably seen me mention this before in other videos, we've got a clear fork there, and the fork represents a couple of things, but in particular where this fork it reaches upwards towards outer Mars. This is someone who is desiring to build their kind of financial fortress, stability financially. This is someone who's thinking about money. This is their left hand. It's internal. There's a deep-rooted kind of need there to make more money. The fork also shows us that, and this is actually what's known as the writer's fork, and he's written a few books. It shows us someone who's very able to put themselves in other people's shoes, and this is hugely beneficial for actors. David Acorah has also acted. I just called him David Acorah. I meant Derrek Acorah. I don't know where that came from. But essentially, it allows us to see life through other people's eyes. It creates for extra perspective. But what the writer's fork also creates is an inability to actually know what the truth is, because when you see more than one truth at the same time, which truth do you choose? It's a sort of junction, a crossroads, and sometimes there's an inability to know which lane to take. People with a writer's fork have been accused of sitting on the fence because of this reason, and I'm pretty sure there's a quote out there that says something like all writers are liars, and there's truth to that, because when you're unable to, I think, essentially know what the truth is because you see more than one truth, how can you know what the truth is? So I think people with a writer's fork accidentally lie. They find themselves lying, and once you've told that lie, well, either you come clean or you paint yourself into a corner. So I'm not going to say that this is the sign of a liar, because it's not necessarily. It's the sign of someone who is very able to see more than one perspective, and there are pros and cons because of that. We can never diagnose from one sign or symptom alone. The other thing that's really prominent about Derrek Acorah, not David Acorah, by the way, don't know who that person is this here. This is an extremely well-developed Neptune mount. Venus is very well developed. Luna is, of course, very well developed. And very red, which again shows this sort of intensity of imagination and intuition. I'm not doubting that David was a highly intuitive individual, especially with his very rounded fingertips. And this is, and I'm going off course a little bit here, but this tip of Jupiter is indicative of someone who is a spiritual leader in some ways. It's a very spiritual person. There's no doubt about that. In some ways, this is very much like Gandhi's index finger. If only it was shorter. If we had less of an ego, then we would be looking at someone who is a bit more inclined to do things for others, with others, rather than for self-gain. But what this strong Neptune mount really helps us with is, so here we've got here, now we're not looking at the hand of an athlete, so to speak. I mean, Derrek was a bit of a footballer early on in life, but what this kind of well-developed Venus mount shows us, yes, it does show us initially, a good innate kind of inherited constitution, but it shows us charisma, personality, warmth of spirit. And when we have the ability to access or cross this bridge of Neptune, our charisma, our warmth, who we are, our personality can cross over into Luna, and Luna is this place of travel, when we explore, when we escape with, kind of utilizing our imagination, we fantasy, these unrealistic thoughts, ideas, the unconscious, dreams. When we travel, we have to utilize Luna, and in the physical world, this makes sense as well. When we want to put ourselves out there, when we desire reputation, when we desire glory, validation from others, we always see a well-developed lunar mount. You always see a well-developed lunar mount on actors. singers, anyone who wants to really put themselves out there. So when we have a well-developed amount of Neptune, what this really tells us is someone who's very able to captivate others, to engage with an audience, to get them to hang off their every word, to hypnotize them, especially with a Neptune amount that's this well-developed. But when we see it in conjunction with a very well-developed Venus and Luna, we've got here a triple threat. This is someone who has the charisma, who has the ability to engage and captivate and keep the audience engaged, and this desire also to do it as well. We've got all three here. So when we have this strong ego, strong authoritative decision maker with ambition and ego, we've got here a high starting headliner as well, which is another sign of ambition. When we have here instincts, someone who's intuitive, is able to work, I'm going to say it now, work people. This is someone who is very able to play the long con. This is someone who's very able to manipulate and to make a living through exploiting others. And it's possible that that's what this person has done because of this kind of wavy heartline. I'm more inclined to believe that this is more of a physical issue, especially as this is developed. It's on the right hand, not so much on the left. On the left, actually, what we have here is a relatively healthy heartline in terms of emotional and psychological makeup. I say all these things, it's really difficult to kind of come towards these kind of concrete conclusions as to who a person is just based off such bleak information. This is really a poor quality image, but the things I'm saying are the things that I'm quite certain about. And I really can't stress this enough. Anyone with a Neptune mount this strong, with the charisma to match and the desire to put themselves out there, they not only have the ability to captivate and engage, they have the ability to hypnotize. So if there are other kind of negative or deceitful signs at play, these are kind of warning signs. With these signs there, I mean, if there's intuition there as well, then it's more likely that they'll be utilizing that intuition to exploit others rather than any sort of genuine intuition, which there may well be. As I say, it's hard for me to really know for certain. I can't see any specific chirological, if you like, signs because I just don't have the clarity. I'd really like to search for, the mystic cross or the ring of Solomon or any kind of sympathy or intuition lines, and I can't really see that. I mean, there is a Mercury line that's attached to the lifeline, and it works upwards towards the Mercury mount. And this could be, you could say that this person's intuition is directly linked to their environment, that their life, directly is impacted by this ability to instinctively pick up on things. You could say that. Or you could say that this person is very lucky. Because actually, a Mercury line that looks like this, that's so straight and well developed, and touches the lifeline, the lifeline like this, it's actually known in Russian palmistry as the mark of the vampire. Russians don't joke about vampires. There's something like 38 names for them in their culture. And having protection from vampires essentially is a very lucky sign. And actually what this sign means over here in the West is that this is luck. But luck is a perception of circumstance. For me, this is a highly intuitive individual. When someone is able to instinctively know what the right decision is to make in any one given moment, you could say that's luck, but you could also say that's a very intuitive person. It's not luck if you're making a decision. Sometimes I think people with this sign, they kind of come out of situations where others would look at them and think, oh, this isn't going to end well, but somehow they do. They come out, in favor somehow. This is that very same person. This is one of those people. Very lucky individual, but is it luck? I don't think so. I think this is actually intuition. But I think this intuition is more, utilized in terms of reading people. This is someone who's very able, very This is someone who understands people. As I say, it's got the writer's fork. Someone who's able to see life through other people's eyes. This is someone who's very able to captivate and hypnotize others. But more than that, this is a people person. This is someone who understands their audience and really enjoys being, putting themselves out there. Now, a person with a fate line that stems from the central plane of Mars. I mean, you could argue that actually it actually kind of stems from Luna, and it does, and it's also, it's close to Neptune as well. It's a bit of a mix of these places. A fate line that kind of appears out of the central plane of Mars, it appears to sort of appear from nowhere, is a sign of someone who has changed their life path and really struggled, but all of a sudden they've really made something for themselves, and they owe that to no one but themselves. That's what that really shows. But when we see a fate line that kind of begins to fork at where the fate line meets the headline, this really shows us someone who's made a decision around about the age of 35-ish to completely change their life. And this also indicates, it shows us this is someone who, again, this is another sign of someone who is very materialistically focused, and they're willing to use their reputation, vanity, glory, their personality, their charisma, in order to make their wealth, to become successful. This person decided that they were going to become a TV personality. Now, there are a lot of psychics out there who stay below the radar. Terry Stokes, in fact, is one of them, my mentor. He became very famous, but decided that wasn't for him, and still did his job, but just without all the fame. There are a lot of genuine psychics out there that don't want that fame, that would rather use their gifts for the purpose that it's meant for. And there are those that are, career psychics, if you like, and that's what Derrek was. And I think at some point you have to ask yourself, are they doing it for another purpose? And the signs that I'm being shown here tell me that. That's at least my interpretation. Now, I'm going to work towards my closing argument here because I feel quite strongly about this. The Mercury finger, notice just how well developed the first phalanx is here. The tip of Mercury is our truth. It's our message. As I say, the first phalanx of all of our fingers is a more spiritual aspect of what that finger represents for us. And so Mercury being the finger of expression and communication, it means for this person, this kind of very well-developed tip, it shows that their truth is, they're very able to get their truth across. And I've spoken about that word, actually, is quite key, truth. I've spoken about that quite a bit during this reading. So they're very able to articulate and communicate their message. They're very gifted, with that tongue, silver tongue, gift of the gab, if you like. So that, in conjunction with everything else that I've mentioned, if not used for good, these could be potentially very nefarious signs. Now then, here we have it. Look at this little finger. Look at it. I'm just amazed. You don't quite see the same thing on the right hand. And then, yeah, okay, it's not the clearest of images. It's not really a fair representation, but I've got enough images I've looked through, and I've not seen it on the left hand, but it is on the right hand. And this shows, is very telling of someone who is... So the left hand is what's internal, and the right hand is what's external. So this finger is communication and expression. And look at where the finger decides to bend away from the rest of the palm, from the rest of the fingers. This really shows that this person has made it, and is, at this time of this image, making a conscious effort to their ability, their communication method, if you like, is crooked. When we see a crooked Mercury finger, so too is a person's expressive and communicative abilities. And this is a conscious effort. The right hand is external. It's not like they are unable to, it's not like this is a person who is uncontrollably lying. This is a conscious effort to deceive others. That's what this shows me. And it's a bit concerning, to be honest. If we saw the Mercury finger, sort of bending away or turned away at the third phalanx, then it would be completely different. It would show someone who is comfortable expressing themselves in a private situation, away from others. And that's often the case with A-list celebrities, royalty. We see it all the time. Someone who won't be ruled by others, who will, they desire quiet. They desire, a relationship that allows them freedom of movement. That's what that really shows us. But this is different. This second phalanx is the mind. Their decision in terms of how they communicate is crooked, purposefully, consciously. It's quite an alarming sign, and I don't see it all that often. And so everything combined here, the picture that I'm getting of this person, from what I can here, because I can't pick up on everything, obviously, as I've said, I'm actually getting the picture of a bit of a sociopath. It's not a good look. I'm sorry, Derrek, but that's my opinion. That's my interpretation of your palms. And let me know what your thoughts are. It's not the most positive of readings, and I'm sure a lot of you already have your own opinion on Derrek. Perhaps you completely disagree with me, and that's fine. As I said, I do think this person has highly intuitive abilities, and I think they may well, to some degree, be psychic, but I don't think it was nearly as much as he felt it was, or actually as much as he made out. And that's the thing here. I think there's an over kind of inflation of his so-called abilities. So that's my reading for this Sunday. Next Sunday, I think I'm going to read the palms of Jackie Chan. There we go. Let me know what your thoughts are, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and thank you to everyone else who has and liked and commented. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.